using same formula for different cells. We're going to use an example for when we would like to calculate commission for the agents that are generating different amounts of income. So let's just go back to our Excel file. I'm going to generate some numbers: 4,000, 6,000, 10,000, and 13,000. Again, this could be like 100 agents working for you. We are just using the example of 4 agents. So they're on a commission. They're working and generating different amounts of income. Now there's a rate that is multiplied by how much each agent is generating, and that is their income. So let's assume that it is 6% for all the agents. So I'm basically typing 6% for every single agent. So the idea is that the agent has made $13,000 in a month, and 6% of that is that agent's income in that month. So we have learned how we can define a formula. So we start with equals sign. I'm clicking on 4,000, multiply by, now I'm clicking on 6%. Press enter, that is $240. Now imagine you have, say, 1,000 agents that are working for you. So basically now you have to come here and do that again. So you have to do that 1,000 times if you've got 1,000 agents. That you have to put equal sign, then click on 6,000, multiply by, now click on 6%, press enter. Now we have to do that again. So equal sign, click on 10,000, now multiply by 6%, and so forth. Now for 3 or 4 agents, it may not take a lot of time, but imagine you had to do this for 1,000 agents. So the general example here is that you would like to copy a formula from one cell to the other cells. Now it doesn't matter if there are 5 more cells or 100 more cells or 10,000 more cells. The idea is that you would like to repeat the same formula. So in our case, I'm going to delete these numbers. So we define the formula in the first cell or in the first row. Now we would like to copy this formula to the rest of the cells. Remember that we learned how to copy cells. Basically, it's the same process, except that we are copying the formula. So we will make a left click on it. At the corner here, there is the little green box. If you hover around it, you're going to see that symbol, which is a black plus sign. You make a left click on it, hold on to it, and drag it down. Basically, what happened is that it copied the formula from the first cell to the second, third, and fourth cell. If you have 1,000 agents working for you, basically it would have copied the formula to 1,000 agents to calculate their income based on how much they have generated and multiplied by the percentage, which in this case is 6%. Moving on to the next PowerPoint slide, which is if function. So if function has 3 parts. One is the logical test. Now holds the condition that you would like to check. So if you check that logic, it is either the logic is true or false. The second part of the if function is the value if that logic is true. The third part of a function is the value if the logic is false. So if function has 3 arguments or 3 parts. The first part is the logic that is going to be tested. If that logic is true, the value that is going to represent that comes as the second part or second argument. If that logic is false, the value that represents that is going to come as the third part or third argument in the if function. For example, if cell A is less than cell B, you would like to see good. If cell A is not less than cell B, you will see bad. So as you see, there are two commas that are separating three arguments. The condition is that the content of cell A being less than cell B. So that's the logic that you would like to check. The fact is, this is either true or false. It is either the content of cell A is less than cell B or not. If the content of cell A is less than cell B, you're going to see good as the term that is going to be printed. Otherwise, you're going to see bad. So this is what we mean by, this is just an example for, what if function is. And when we say there are three parts, the first part is the logic. Second part, if logic is true. Third part, what you will see if the logic is false. So let's come back here. We had this example about the agents and how much they have generated. So I'm going to make a click here. I'm going to go to Home tab. From the font size, I'm going to select all borders. And by the way, we are going to discuss these in the later chapters when we talk about formatting. But as we are on it, I will just discuss them. So I basically came to Home tab, font group, and here there's all borders. From drop-down box, I selected all borders. It's not making a table. It is just basically adding borders to a cell. While I'm doing that, I'm going to define the sum function, which is equal sum. I double left click on it, select the cells, and then close parentheses, press enter. This is what we have already learned how to do, how to use sum function. So what we have here, this can be the summation of payouts to agents in a given time period. For example, this could be like how much we are paying all agents in a month. So that is 1,980. Okay, now I'm going to relate this to a function. Now I'm going to come here, this cell, clicking on all borders so that this is also a bordered cell. Now I'm going to define a function here. So that's equal if, now double left click on it. As you see, it walks you through or guides you on, what the arguments are, what the steps are. So the first thing is logical test. Now, what I want to define here is that if this number, which is the total payout to agents, if that number is less than a certain number, we are within budget. If not, we are over budget. So I'm going to click on it and say, if this number is less than, for example, 4,000, now comma, we are under budget. I'm not typing under budget, and there are quotations that we are using. So basically I put under budget in quotations, now comma. If that number is not less than 4,000, meaning that it is more than 4,000, then we are over budget. So I'm typing over budget. And I put it in quotations and I close parentheses. Now I press enter. You see that the content doesn't fit, so I go to the border of J and K column, the column heads, double left click, I get a perfect fit. So I have not defined the if function here. As this number is less than 1,000, like the number is 1,980, as it is less than 4,000, which is basically, imagine that's your operational budget. Imagine like you're running this for a project and you have operational budget for a month and you have summed it up and it is 1,980. Now you're still, below 4,000. That means there's some room here to increase these percentages. Imagine that there's a suggestion that you would like to give a raise to these agents, right? But you still wonder, are you going to be below the budget if you give them a raise? Now, let's say you want to increase 6% to 7%, and you're wondering if you're still going to be under budget or not. So I just changed 6% to 7%. As you see, this number changed here. But you will want to apply that to all the agents. So I'm going to make a click on 7%. I'm going to drag it down from the corner. So now basically I'm copying 7% to all the cells. As you just noticed, these numbers automatically changed, as well as the summation. And we are still under budget. So if you increase it to 7%, you're still under budget. So now you're wondering, well, seems like there's still some room. So let's just try 9%. If I basically pay them 9% commission from what they're generating. Now you want to apply that to all the agents. You see that it is $2,970 in total, and you're still under budget. Now you're wondering, okay, let's just try 12% now. Let's see how that goes. 12% for everyone. Well, seems like you're almost there now, 3,960. So it seems like you kind of got there, but you're wondering, okay, if I do 13%, will I be under budget? So I apply to all, the total becomes 4,290, the total payouts in commission. As you see, this also automatically changed now. So this is a dynamic tool. This is the good thing, the beauty of working with formulas that we have been discussing in this session, that when you work with formulas, formulas don't care about numbers. They care about range of cells. When numbers change, formulas are updated and they give you the updated value, meaning you do not need to change or modify the formulas unless you mean to change something about the formulas. As you see, we just change the numbers and the formulas gets updated automatically, and also the if function gives you the updated result as well. So there's a good thing about working with formulas, that they will give you the updated values as data change. Formulas don't care about the changes in data. They capture the changes and they give you the updated value. And we just saw for ourselves how we went from like 7% to 13% just to find out that 13% is not going to cut it. Basically, we're going to be over budget, and we have to keep it at 12% because that's the number that we can keep the agents happy that they're working for us, because we literally raised their commission from 7% to 12%. Now, again, we are doing this only for 4 agents, but imagine how much time this can save you in your operations, in your decision-making process as a manager, just to run these operations and decide, should I give them 12%? Should I give them 11%? Can I give them 13%? And just by applying these functions to your data, you can make those decisions very quick. Again, this could be, maybe you're doing this for your branches. Maybe it's a franchise business that you're running this kind of formulas on. It can be any example, but by applying these functions, you can get very quick answers on, how sensitive your data is to these changes, and also make informed decisions in that regard. So that was about the if function. So far we have learned a lot of functions that we have done, that we have applied to the data. Now we're going to mix them. It gets a little bit more interesting here. So now we're going to work with average of function. So just remember what average did. We average certain numbers. Now when we do average if, we are saying that we don't want the average over all the numbers. Basically, we want to average the numbers that meet a certain criteria. So that's where if comes in. So that's what makes average if. So average the numbers if they meet this criteria. So let's just go back to the table that we have created. These are the commissions that has been generated or has to be paid out to our agents. So let's say you just want to calculate the average. You can select them. At the bottom, you see that the average is 990. So you can put equal average, and then you can select the numbers, close parentheses, press enter. You've got 990, which again, if you select these 4 cells at the bottom, you also see that the average is 990. That is just doing average. What if you would like to calculate the average for the payouts which are more than 1,000? That means you're not interested in the first 2 because they are less than 1,000. So what you want is the average of basically these last 2. Now imagine again, in this set of data, there are only 4 numbers. So by looking at it, we can tell that yes, these are the first 2 numbers are going to be excluded because they're less than 1,000. The other 2 numbers are going to be included because they're more than 1,000. Basically, the last 2 numbers are the ones on which the average function is going to be applied. Now imagine you have thousands of these numbers with no pattern. Some of them are 2-digit numbers, some of them are 3 digits, some of them are 4-digit, and they're scattered. It's irregular pattern. So by just looking at it, you can't tell what those numbers are. So when you use average if function, it selects first, it selects the numbers that meet that criteria, then applies the average function over that selected set of data, then it gives you the output. So for example, here we would like to find the average for the data that are more than 1,000. Like again, in this example, it's about commissions. It could be sales. For example, this could be that a customer has spent $480 in your online shop. One customer has spent $720. One customer has spent $1,200. One customer has spent $1,560. Right? So these are sales basically. Now you're interested to find out the average sales for the sales that are more than 1,000. Right? So let's see how that works out. So we're going to put equal average if. So I put equal sign because it's a function. Then I typed average if. Average if appears here at the top of the list. I double left click on it, right? Now, as always, Excel guides you through. The first thing it's asking you is range, and then it's asking for criteria. So what is the range in which we are going to define a criteria? This is the range in which we are going to define the criteria, which is only deal with numbers that are more than 1,000. So first I select the range, now comma, I just typed comma from keyboard, and now I'm going to define that criteria. I'm going to put that in quotations. So first, open quotation, I'm going to now put greater than 1,000. Close quotation, now close parentheses. So what I did, I'm saying average if numbers that are more than 1,000. Excel is wondering, where are those numbers? Meaning, define the range. So first we select these numbers. So we define that this is the range of numbers that I'm interested in. Then we put comma, and then we define the function. Now press enter. It gives you 1,380. So that is basically supposed to be the average of these 2 numbers. Let's check it out or verify it. So see, I select these 2 numbers, 1,200 and 1,560. The average is 1,380. We see that at the bottom here. And that's basically what the average function also gave us. Now you can also change this function. What if you would like the summation of total sales that are more than 1,000? So customers have made different purchases in different numbers. Some of them are more than $1,000. You want now the summation of all those sales that are more than 1,000. You don't want average. What you can do is you make a left click where you define the formula. You go to the formula bar, which is up here. Now change average to sum. So this is basically how we modify the content of a cell. So I'm going to type sum. So basically what I have here now is SUMIF function. So I took out average, I typed sum, if it is still there, so I've got SUMIF, and press enter. So what it did is that it summed up the numbers that are more than 1,000. So let's see if I select these 2 just to verify it. See, the summation is 3,760, which is also what we got from the SUMIF function. So you can use SUMIF or you can use average if. You can, define SUMIF separately too, obviously. So let's do another one. So we've got equal SUMIF because we did average if. Now let's do SUMIF. So sum the numbers that are, I'm putting comma. Now let's define another condition. For example, last time we did greater than, let's do less than. Sum the numbers that are less than 900. Close quotation, close parentheses, press enter. So that would be the summation of 480 and 720 that fits the criteria of being less than 900. So if you select these two numbers, the first two numbers that are less than 900, you see that the summation is 1200 down here, which is basically what also we got from using the sum if function. Again, we are just using the bottom there to verify the numbers. So as you see, you can use average if, you can use sum if, and you can define the criteria for conducting that or applying that function. Now, as you notice in this example that we just went through, we applied the condition to the same column to which we applied the function. So the condition and function both happen in the same column. This was the column in which we defined the condition, and then we applied the calculation to the same column. Now, we are going to expand that. So what we are going to do in the second, which is this example, is that say we've got customers. Those customers are making purchases from different provinces. And in the last column, we see how much those purchases have been. Now, using average of function, we would like to find the total sales that have been made by customers in Ontario. So as you see, the condition is happening in the second column. The summation is going to be applied to the third column. Again, the condition is we would like to sum up the sales from all the customers who have made purchases in the province of Ontario. Again, we are looking at like a small table here. Imagine this is like a business, and imagine it's Amazon. And in 10 minutes, maybe 10,000 people in Canada have made purchases from different provinces, from Nova Scotia, from Ontario, from New Brunswick, from PEI, from Quebec, from so forth. So there's no pattern here. Every customer is from a different province, but what you're interested in is just the customers who are from Nova Scotia. You just want to know, like in the last 10 minutes, what was the total purchase made across province of Nova Scotia? I'm saying in the last 10 minutes. Maybe you want to do weekly reports. Maybe you want to do monthly reports in your business. You want to know in the last month, what was the total sales from province of Nova Scotia? What was the total sales from province of Ontario? What was the total sales from province of PEI? And you are looking at data with 10,000 data points or 100,000 data points or million data points. But what you're interested in is just a specific province. So that's when average if can come. And by the way, this is one way of doing this. There are different approaches in Excel to work with data and manage data that we are going to learn in other chapters as well. This is one way of doing this, that you've got a lot of data, there's a condition that has to be met, and according to that condition, you would like to apply a function. So let's just apply this I'm going to go to a new worksheet here. So we have different customers. So that's X, Y, Z, B, and A. These are basically customers' name. They come from different provinces: Ontario, Nova Scotia, Ontario again, Ontario. Well, let's put Nova Scotia again, and Nova Scotia again. And let's go now with how much they have made purchases. So 500, 1,500, and then 2,000. And we are looking at Nova Scotia, 400 and 2,000. Okay. So let's say we are only interested in Nova Scotia. So I'm going to put equal sum if. So sum up the sales for the customers who have made purchases from Nova Scotia. So the question is, now we put like equal sum if you see that it's asking for range, criteria, and sum range. As I mentioned before, it's the best to find a way of connecting with how Excel is trying to give you tips on what is it that you have to put here as range. Because if you look at it, there are two ranges that you're dealing with here. Customer names are not playing any role. The idea here is that you're interested in calculating the total sales for customers that are coming from province of Nova Scotia. So the customer names are not playing any role, but there are now two columns that you're interested in, or there are two columns that you have to work with. Now, when you look at this syntax here, or the arguments, the first is range. The question is, what range? Should I go with the range of cells that are about provinces, or should I go with the range of cells that are about the sales? Because I know that I need both. So the range is the range in which you're going to define the criteria. And the criteria is that you're only interested in customers who have made purchases in the province of Nova Scotia. So this is the range. The range in which there are provinces is the range that you have to select first. Okay, now comma. Now it's asking for criteria. What's the criteria in this range? In quotations, I'm going to type Nova Scotia. So the criteria is you're interested in Nova Scotia in that range. Now, close the quotation, comma. Now it is asking for sum range. What is the range in which you're going to apply summation? Basically, I'm putting it in such a way that it may help you to remember what exactly comes as argument inside a SUMIF or average of function. So it says sum range. What is the range in which you're going to apply summation? And that is this range. So I select that range, close parentheses, now press enter. So what we wanted to find summation of sales for customers who are coming from Nova Scotia. Now, as there are only 3 entries here for Nova Scotia, it would be easy to just manually verify that. So we have got 1,500 for Nova Scotia. We have got 400 for Nova Scotia, so that's 1,900. 1,900 and 2,000 from Nova Scotia, that would become 3,900. So we use basically now SUMIF in a different way, in such a way that the condition was happening in column 2, the calculation was happening in column 3. As you see, you can apply SUMIF or average of function to that as well. So far, we have only done SUMIF. We can also do average if. We can say, what is the average sales from the province of Nova Scotia? It's actually a very simple and very powerful question to ask. If you are running a franchise business in different provinces, you're just wondering about average sales in one province. And then you can create charts, which we're going to study in a different chapter, how we create charts. And then you can create charts on the average sales from each province. And then you can see which province has the highest average sales, which province has the lowest sales in a particular time unit. And then you can compare that from month to month. Maybe in 1 month, the average sales in Nova Scotia is higher than the rest of Canada. Maybe in a different month, the average sales in Ontario is highest. Then you can look into what the reason for that is. So as you see, there's a lot here that Excel enables you or helps you with making informed decisions or having a good picture of what's going on in your business. So far we have done SUMIF. Let's change that to average if, so that we can find the average of sales from province of Nova Scotia. Now we can go and do that separately. We can just put equal now average if. Same process. It's going to ask what the range is. So we're going to select the range. Now comma, in quotations, let's just do Ontario. Why not? We did Nova Scotia. Let's do average of with Ontario. So we're interested in average of sales from Ontario. Now, comma, and it's now asking average range. So what is the range in which average is going to happen? That is here. Now close parentheses and press enter. So Ontario, you've got 500 and 2000. If you sum them up, that is going to be 2500. Now we use average, which means 2500 divided by 2, which will be 1250. Now, if you would like to do SUMIF with this, now you can again go on the side and do equal SUMIF. That's a possibility. Or just like how we did it for Nova Scotia, basically. Or you can edit the formula or modify it. So here we did average if for Ontario. I make a left click on it. You see that in the address bar. Now instead of average, you can put sum. So I deleted average and I'm typing sum. So SUMIF basically for Ontario. So which is basically 2500. If you do that average, then it's going to divide it by 2, and then you're going to get 1250. So as you see, you can do average if or SUMIF in a table. You can apply the condition to one column, and the calculation itself can be applied to a different column. Now, in the last PowerPoint slide, we're going to stir it up a little bit more. It just gets a little bit more spicy, which just makes it a little bit more interesting. So what we have got here is now some ifs. As you see, there's just this little letter S that is added to some if. Now, this could be average ifs too. You know, one is going to calculate average, one is going to calculate sum. The idea here is that there's just this little S that is added to this function. And now this is a new function. Some ifs. So if you think of what S is doing there, what is letter S? Think of it as plural. You know, like we have a noun and we add S letter, and now it is the plural form of that name or noun. Book, books. Think of it as we had some if there was one condition. Now it is plural, meaning we can have more than one condition. That's how it gets more interesting. So back to our example. The condition was that we were interested, for example, in total sales from Ontario. Now you can add another condition here. You can say, I am interested to calculate the total sales that are from Ontario and they are greater than 1,000. Now I've got two conditions. So you're not just interested in total sales from Ontario. You're interested in sales, the total sales that are from Ontario and they are more than 1,000. So now you've got two conditions. Or it could be any other condition. It could be that you're interested in total sales that are from Nova Scotia and they're less than 500. Or you're interested in total sales, well, average sales from Nova Scotia that are more than 750. These are all basically the same examples. Bottom line here is that you've got two conditions. One is that you're selecting the province, but you're not interested in all sales that come from that province. There's another condition on the price itself. So that's where there's that little S that represents plural form of, the SUMIF function, meaning or indicating that there is more than one function. By the way, I don't think or know that that letter S is there for that reason. It's just to help you or show you a way of kind of remembering, what would be the difference between SUMIF and SUMIFs. You can just think of it as that's a letter S for plural, meaning that it is for when you have more than one condition, or that's when you actually have to use it. So let's come back to our example. And in this example, we're going to apply SUMIFs. Now you're going to notice that our approach is going to be slightly different. And, it's how it has been coded, just like how when we discussed about the keyboard combinations for, say, Control N is for new workbook, Control O is to open an already existing workbook, but then when it came to table, it was not Control T, it was actually Control L. So it was not consistent. So here we're going to see a little bit of that inconsistency as well. The way that we did it with average if, it's not going to be the same when we do with average ifs. Or the way that we did it with SUMIF, it's not going to be the same way we're going to do with SUMIFs. Why is that the case? That's how it has been coded. but it's going to be a little bit different. So let's just do some ifs. I'm going to type some if, and then as you see, I type some if, there's some if that appears, and then there's some ifs at the bottom. I'm going to double left click on some ifs. Now, it's going to ask for some range. Remember, when we were doing with some if, the first column that we selected was the one that criteria was going to be defined in it, right? That's not the case here. So it's asking for some range. You're going to select the range in which summation is going to happen. That way it is consistent, because that was the exact same approach we had with SUMIF function. That part has not changed. But the part that has changed was that we were selecting the range, and then followed by that was defining a criteria immediately. That's not the case here though. So just to look at what SUMIF is telling you as the first argument is some range. So ask yourself, what is the range in which I'm going to do summation? That is where the numbers are. So we're going to select the numbers first. Okay, now comma. Now it comes to criteria underscore range 1. That is, what is the first range in which you're going to define a criteria? Now, what is criteria 1? Because we are using some ifs. So Excel knows that there's going to be more than one criteria. So what it is telling you is, what is range 1 in which you're going to define a criteria? That is the second column. So I'm going to select the second column, comma. Now it is asking, what is the criteria? The criteria is, it has to be from, say, Nova Scotia. So I'm typing Nova Scotia, close quotation, comma. Now it's asking criteria range 2. What is the second range in which you're going to define a criteria? Happens to be the sum range. This is the column that we are going to define a criteria in, because we are not just interested in the summation of sales from Nova Scotia. We would like to define a criteria on the sale price as well. We are only interested in the prices that are from Nova Scotia, and they're more than 1,000. So that means there is going to be a criteria on the sale column as well, which it is asking criteria range 2. What is the range, or the second range, in which you're going to define a criteria? That is where the sale prices are. So we are going to select this column again. So I'm selecting it. Now, comma. Now it's asking, what is the second criteria? The criteria is, we are only interested in sale prices that are greater than 1,000. Now, close quotation, close parentheses. So let's see what we expect to get before I press enter. So we said we want some ifs. The first thing to ask you is, where is my playground? Where I'm going to do the numbers. Okay, so first we selected the numbers, comma. Then we say, okay, go to the column that has information on the provinces. Select that. We did it, comma. Then we say, okay, the criteria is, I only want Nova Scotia from this column, comma. Then we select the other column that has numbers in it, comma. Then we say, in this column, I'm only interested in the ones that are more than 1,000. So we're interested in Nova Scotia, 1,500. Does that qualify? Yes. The other Nova Scotia is 400. That is less than 1,000. That does not qualify. Then we come to the other Nova Scotia, and it is 2,000. That does qualify. And we want sum. So that's going to be a summation of 1,500 and 2,000. So what we expect to see is 1,500 plus 2,000, which is 3,500. Press enter. There we have 3,500. Now, we did this with some ifs. This could be average ifs. Let's just do that separately, just to practice. You can easily come here and change sum to average. Now you've got average ifs. Press enter. It's basically going to be 1500 plus 2000, which is 3500. Divide that by 2, you're going to get 1750. But just to practice that, we're going to do that again on the side. So I'm typing average ifs, which now comes here at the top, double left click. It says average range. What is the range in which I'm going to do averages? Okay, so I'm going to come here and select the range in which we're going to do averages. Now, comma. It says criteria range 1. What is the range 1 in which I'm going to define a criteria? Again, I'm kind of explaining this way to kind of show you a path, show you a way of connecting with these arguments, because you really don't need to memorize it. If you just practice this a couple of times, and you know the way I'm explaining it, if you just explain that to yourself as you're doing it, then you'll remember it that way. So what is the range 1, or the first range in which you're going to define a criteria? That is where the provinces are, comma. So I select that and then press comma. Now it's asking what the criteria is. I'm going to put that in quotations. Now let's work with Ontario this time. We did like, sum if with Nova Scotia. We also did average if with Nova Scotia by modifying the formula. Let's do average if with Ontario. Now, comma, it's asking criteria range 2. What is the second range in which you're going to define a criteria? Remember, it's only asking for the range. So select the range. Now, comma. Now, in quotations, we are going to put the second criteria. From Ontario, let's say we are interested in numbers that are greater than 300. Close parentheses. Now, what we expect to see here? We would like Ontario, and we would not and we like numbers that are more than 300. Basically, both of the numbers from Ontario are more than 300. So both of them basically qualify. So that would be 500 plus 2000, which is 2500. And it is average, which means 2500 divided by 2, which would be 1250. And that's exactly what we get. Now, if you would want to do sum ifs, you can click here in the formula bar, take out the average and put sum. And now press enter, which is basically 2500 for sum ifs.